Hello and welcome to Miniature Realms. My name is Stuart and welcome to part 2 of the Epic Battles of Waterloo British Infantry painting tutorial. So this is a little bit of an addendum really to the original painting tutorial, and I'll pop a little link in there now. I wanted to keep it quite simple and keep the original video under 20 minutes, which I managed to do. I thought then the best way to do it was just be focusing on a full stand of the regular infantry and the processes there, because that carries over to the rest of the whole unit. The only difference with the command stand is obviously the command models themselves, the two flag bearers, your officer, your drummer, and your sergeant there. So I wanted to kind of use a second video that was a bit optional really, not everyone was going to watch it, a second video to tell you about how I'm painting those and the processes that I'm using for those, and also how I finish off the unit by adding the flags and doing the basing. So that's the main things. I just want to briefly go through what I've done with this stand before we get going. I've finished completely the 5 regular guys there, the same way as I have in the original tutorial. They're all done and ready to go. And the other miniatures, I've done all of the stages which were covered in the previous tutorial as well. So the red is finished, the blue is finished just about. There's one little area I want to show you. Trousers are finished. So basically covering the areas that you've already been shown how to do. And then today's tutorial is really about what I'm doing to pick out the weapons, the gold braiding, the drum and things like that. This unit is the King's German Legion. I think I'm going to do them as the 5th Battalion, which are well known for having a bit of a nasty end near La Haye Sainte at Waterloo after being ordered to advance and being cut down by cavalry, sort of ordered out a square. But I won't turn this into a history lesson. This unit is also in a battle I'm looking into in the peninsula called Vittoria, and on my project, once I sort of start talking about it, it's going to be a bit of a mix between the two. So let's get cracking, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint in the inner areas of the drum. That should be blue. And I'm going to use contrast Ultramarines blue. Then using the same colour, I'm going to do the turnbacks on the officer's jacket. That's the only bit I've left off, just to show the difference between the sculpts really and the standard guys from the first video. And just as I did in the first video, this very subtle highlight for those is this Scalecolour Fantasy Games range, the SFG 29. Right, the next bit on the drum is I just want to add a little bit of red around the top and the bottom rims. There is some gold trim on the pictures I've seen as well, but there's not really enough room for it on this miniature, not from my poor eyes anyway, but I think the red will do the job. So again, I'm going to use the Blood Angels contrast red that I'll be using for the rest of the miniatures. So that's the red trim on the drum. I'm just going to add a few bits of brown now, so contrast Gore-Grunta Fur. So I've used it quite a few times before, and you'll see I've already used it to test here. So I'm going to add it to the flagpoles. That was the test one. I'm going to add it to the spontoons handle there as well. I'm going to do my drumsticks with it as well. Okay, so those bits are on there now. There are a couple of little extra things I want to do. So I just want to add a little bit of colour to the top of the drum skin, and I'm going to be using some snakebite leather contrast for that. And then something I haven't done or haven't shown on my first tutorial is a couple of the miniatures do actually have the water bottle showing, and I've painted those first in a contrast Talisar blue. And I'm just doing a small highlight with more scale colour Fantasy Games range, and it's Armath blue, and that's SFG 30. And I'm going to do both of those things now. So next up, just picking out a few metallic bits, and I'm going to use Scalecolour, Metal and Alchemy, Black Metal. So the areas I'm going to paint are the spike on the spontoon, the officer's sword, the hilt of the sergeant's sword. It's sorry, the banner sergeant's sword. I think that's probably it, but as I scoot round I may pick up the odd one thing. So next up, I'm going to be working on the scabbards for the swords for the officer and the sergeants. I've had a quick look at them. I had to do reference to these. I wasn't quite sure, and it seems to be that the main body of the scabbards are a black colour, and then the metal areas are a gold colour. So I'm going to use good old contrast black Templar for the black areas. Then afterwards, I'm going to be using, first off, Scalecolour Necro Gold for the metal areas, and I'll come back and highlight those later when I add a bit more gold trim. Okay, so that's the gold areas painted in. You may have noticed I also added gold to the end of the flagpoles. I don't know what these little things are called at the top. They've probably got a name. Someone put it in the comments, let me know. There's lots of experts out there, I know. And maybe off camera, I think, I can't remember if I was recording or not, I just painted the same gold onto the top of the officer and sergeant's epaulets. I'm now going to be highlighting some of the gold using the same gold that I used in the original tutorial, so it's the Elven gold. Just picking out some sort of top highlights, a little bits on the epaulets, tiny little bits here, and then I've got the buttons to do, and I've got the shako badges to do as well, and even the little bit of braiding on the front of the shakos are actually gold when it comes to the officers and sergeants and banner bearers, etc, etc. The maroon red actually works out quite well. It's the right colour. It's, you know, if I was picking it from a painter's point of view, and you could pick any colour you wanted, you would have chosen something different. But I did just add a faint line of contrast black Templar across the top, just to kind of separate it and divide it up a little bit. Now the final touch is now really just to go back and touch out the white where I've splashed the odd little bit of colour on there, and then we're done. I tell a lie, I have forgotten to highlight the silver that I've applied to the sword and the top of the spontoon. So for that I'm going to use Gain Air Silver. Okay, so now on to the first stage of basing. Now before I apply any basing texture, I generally give my bases a thin coat of petroleum grey from Scale 75. It's a brownish, granitish colour, and I find that when I blot on any texture paint, and I'm going to use some Vallejo texture paint in a moment, it just covers enough that if you leave a little gap, you've got a suitable colour underneath. So now that paint's dry, it's on to put the first part of texture on the base. Now, those of you who have seen my American Civil War bases and things will know exactly how I do this, because I'm using the same method. Next stage, you're going to be putting on some Vallejo earth texture. I will cover the edge of the lip on the bases, so this area here, just to kind of smooth it off. Right then, so the Vallejo earth texture, dark earth, is now dry. It's time for the next stage, and that's just a healthy covering of Agrax Earthshade. Right, now the Agrax Earthshade wash is all dry, and that's really important to know that fully dry for the next stage. I don't do dry brushing anymore on bases. I've not done that for a while. I tend to sort of go after the military modelling effects and things a bit more. So I'm going to use some pigment. I'm going to use some dry pigment. So this is Vallejo Light Senna. And what I do is I just brush it into the texture that's on the base. And it seems a bit of a bizarre thing to do, but it gives you quite a nice realistic effect. So I just spend some time brushing it in dry, and I'll blow away the excess, and what it gives you is a nice kind of earthy texture, and it does look quite dry, but then when you add in some other effects afterwards, it can give you a bit of a kind of multi-use base, and we'll talk about that more at the end when it's finished. So the pigments are on. It's given a bit more texture, a bit more realistic texture, rather than looking like sort of dried texture paint with a wash on it. And the next stage for me now is adding tufts. I prefer tufts to flock. I find them less messy, a little bit more precise. And maybe if I had a proper applicator for flock, it would look a little bit better, but on this sort of scale anyway, I don't really want to get it everywhere. Just a personal thing, you know, use what you like yourself. So I'm going to be using these 2mm tufts from War Painter Figures. You can get them on eBay, get them directly from the store, really good. They're exactly the same tufts and basing as I'm using on American Civil War. These are winter and dead grass. I go by the colour rather than the description of them. I find that the mixture of the two greens means they're fairly versatile across different styles of battlefield, so they're fitting quite well with dry and arid, and with a few mud splats, which I'm going to add in a minute, they look quite good with what would be a wet ground as well. It just kind of tricks the eye into believing that they fit into the environment that you want them to be in. So anyway, let's put those on. So the tufts are fairly small. I do cut some in half. I just go around placing them on the bases. Now some of them I cut completely in half, and they have a flat edge there. That means when I place them at the front side of the base, the straight edge just blends in with the front. Now these are self-adhesive ones. You put a little bit of glue on them as well if you feel you need to. I've not had any of these come off yet. So I've been doing them with the glue that's come straight from the pad. Obviously, once you've peeled them off and cut them and things, you do lose a little bit of that, so it's worth bearing that in mind. So we are ready now to put a few little mud splats on the bases, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use some more Vallejo effects. This time it's going to be thick mud and European mud. Now this stuff, you can just use it straight on the base like I did the original stuff. I find it's more of an effect than a kind of a base layer for basing. If you apply it thick, it just looks really like thick mud. If you play little dots and things, it just adds a little bit of variation and things like that. And this is what I was talking about with being able to kind of blend in with any tabletop. So it's quite a versatile basing system that seems to work well on different mats and in different themes. There's enough dry light colours there that if I say it's peninsula based, and you've got peninsula terrain around and things, then it absolutely fits well. I mean, let's not forget that the Peninsular War was fought in the winter as well, not just Spanish and Portuguese summers, and it will also be very acceptable to use for a Waterloo battlefield, which was obviously very muddy after the rain. So there we go. And in terms of the painting, that's it done. Apart from applying a black rim to the edge of the base, which I won't do on camera because that's boring. The next thing you see me do will be adding the flags and show you how I go about doing that. Right, now onto flags. And you see I've already added the first one. These are quite tricky. So this one's a little bit loose at the moment, but that's deliberate. because of the top of the flagpole, it makes it quite hard to slide these on afterwards. But then if you don't slide them on afterwards and you want to twist them and make them not look straight, which I hope most people would want to do, then it becomes quite hard without breaking the plastic flagpoles themselves. So what I'm going to do, I'm using some quite good glue. So I'm using Gorilla Glue, so it's fast drying, so I can keep working on it. You could just use any white glue, of course. Again, I want something that's going to be quite strong, but and not take hours to dry. If I raided my kids' art box, it might take a little bit longer. So I'm just covering one side of the flag in glue and then matching the sides up. Then I'm twisting and reshaping it a little bit now. And the trick here is adding this flag now before it starts to dry too much, because I've still got enough slack to slide it over the pole. And now I want to pinch it around the pole a little bit and then just squish back. And I've realised this is really hard for you guys to see on the camera with my big fat fingers in the way. Now, they're a little bit loose, but I have a solution for that in a moment. I'll just use a cotton stick, drop a little bit of super glue on the top and just hold them in place, but I need to leave those to dry a little bit now so I can work on them. Right, so the flags are on and pretty much dry. What I want to do now is really tidy up the white you get left. That shows when you twist the paper. You can see it anyway. So I paint it in, and I'm using contrast because I've been using contrast all the way through this, but it matches the colours quite well. So we've got contrast Blood Angels red, which I've been using on the jackets. We've got contrast Ultramarines blue, and I've got black here as well. And I'll talk you through that a little bit more when I do it, but it's to add a little bit of weathering. But let's add the other colours in first. So you're really just filling in where the red meets up with the edge of the paper, and then you wouldn't have the red showing. And these flags are, I may have already mentioned it, they are pre-production ones printed in-house at Warlord, which I got with the review stock. So they will be slightly less glossy with the ones that come in the boxes. Now, as I mentioned earlier, just using the black Templar, and this I'm adding weathering in. I'm adding little splotches and then come back with a cleaner brush, just a bit of water on and just blending it in. And the idea, I want it to look weathered and soot covered from all the black powder that's going off around these flags. And again, it just hides the joins in the flags. I quite like the effect. Won't be for everyone, and it's definitely an optional extra. I tend to put it in the folds of the flags a little bit as well. Helps with the shadowing, but primarily it's a weathering effect that I'm after. If you have made a mistake somewhere, the colour's worn away as you've folded it, which tends to happen a little bit sometimes with flags where you've got a bit of glue stuck to your finger and it's pulled away some of the image. This is a great way of fixing that and just making these flags look a little bit more like they've been on the battlefield. And there we are, the command stand all finished. I'm quite happy with the way it's come out. There are probably quite a few historical inaccuracies, so forgive me, but at this scale I don't think it's really going to matter too much in the grand scheme of things. But I think they've come out quite well, and they will complement the other. And as I said previously, this extra tutorial is a bit of an addendum really. But that is the whole unit done, so let's have a look at them together. I'm pretty happy with the way they've come out. A couple of little things to note which wouldn't have been on the original video. So there are flank companies on the models. I show you here. On the left flank, or the right flank of the unit, or the left flank as we're looking at it, there are 3 men on each rank, on each strip, that have the epaulets on, so they can be the guard company, and the guard have just white plumes. The epaulets would have red and things in them as well, but at this scale I've just left them white so they stand out. Same on the opposite flank will be the light company, and when I used this stand for the original painting tutorial, I just painted all of the plumes the same colours, but the plumes would of course be green for the light company, and I've changed that there. But all in all, I'm really happy. I think that I can paint a unit in a reasonable amount of time. It's not a quick job, you know, this is something that's still going to be potentially a full 8-hour paint job per regiment, which will take a lot of time, but you might be able to work away and get one done a week or something like that, and before you know it, you'll soon build them up. But thank you very much for watching the video. Hopefully you found something useful along the way. I think that you can easily, like I said in the first video, stop at the contrast stage. If you use the zenithal highlighting and the dry brushing, it adds enough natural highlights to make it very serviceable tabletop army, but as if you wanted to push that a little bit further. I may regret that when I get to my 10th regiment or so, but I'm happy with the way they look, and that's the main thing for me as someone who enjoys painting so much. Some people I know will just want to get the models on the table in order to game. We all have our own priorities in this hobby, and none of them are right and none of them are wrong, so to speak. But anyway, thanks very much for watching the video. If this is the first video you found for Miniature Realms, please do check out the other videos on the channel. Plenty of things on there, loads of painting tutorials, lots of epic battles related stuff, been American Civil War, a growing catalogue for the Napoleonic things, and I will be doing more and more, working towards the release date. And there's other things as well. So there's some bolt action, there's some World War II, there's a little bit of a Middle-earth strategy battle game and things, so something to suit everyone, I hope. But thanks very much for watching. Please give us a like and a subscribe, and take care, and I'll catch you all soon.